The cafeteria was loud, crowded, and filled with the usual chatter of students laughing, gossiping, and eating their lunch. In the middle of it all, sitting quietly at the corner table, was Emily. She was the kind of girl most people overlooked, not because she wasn't smart or kind, but because she was painfully shy. Her head was always bent down, her long brown hair shielding her face as she nibbled on her sandwich. Emily never wanted attention, but that afternoon, she got more of it than she ever could have imagined. A group of bullies, led by Marcus, the kind of boy who thought being cruel made him powerful, spotted Emily sitting alone. They exchanged mischievous grins, whispering to one another, before walking over to her table. Emily's heart sank the moment she saw them approaching. She had been through this before, the mocking comments, the fake smiles, the cruel jokes at her expense. She hoped they'd just walk past, but luck wasn't on her side. Marcus leaned over her shoulder with a smirk, his friends watching closely. Without warning, he reached out and snapped the strap of her bra under her shirt, laughing as Emily gasped and clutched her chest in shock. The sound of laughter from the bullies echoed through the cafeteria. A few students turned their heads, but most stayed quiet, pretending not to notice. For Emily, though, it felt like the entire room was watching, and her face burned with humiliation. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't shout. She didn't fight back. Instead, she quietly packed her tray and tried to leave. Marcus and his friends laughed even louder, mocking her as she walked away with her head down. Emily rushed into the restroom, locked herself in a stall, and sobbed. What she didn't know was that every corner of the cafeteria had been under security surveillance. Every moment of what had just happened had been recorded. Emily couldn't bring herself to tell anyone what happened that day. She didn't want to be called dramatic or attention-seeking. She didn't want her parents to worry or her classmates to whisper about her even more. She just wanted to disappear. But the school's security staff had already seen the footage. By the next morning, the principal had called Emily into the office. When she arrived, she found her parents sitting there too, looking both worried and angry. Emily trembled as the principal asked her to explain what happened, but before she could even form the words, he showed the video. The room went silent. Emily's mother covered her mouth in shock, and her father's fists clenched in rage. Emily broke down in tears, feeling exposed and vulnerable, but the principal placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Emily, this is not your fault. What they did to you was wrong, very wrong, and it will not be ignored." The bullies were called into the office, one by one. At first, Marcus tried to laugh it off, insisting it was just a joke. But when he saw the footage, his smirk vanished. His parents were. The cafeteria was always the loudest place in school, hundreds of voices bouncing off the walls, trays clattering, laughter filling the air. But for Emily, it was the loneliest place. She usually sat at the farthest table in the corner, keeping her head down, trying to make herself invisible. She was shy, painfully shy, the kind of girl who never raised her hand in class, never joined group conversations, and never wanted anyone's attention. But sometimes, it was the quietest people who attracted the cruelest eyes. That day, Marcus and his group of friends spotted her. Marcus was the kind of boy who thought bullying was a sport, loud, arrogant, always looking for someone weaker to humiliate. His friends laughed at everything he did, even when it wasn't funny, just to stay in his good graces. When he saw Emily sitting alone, his smirk widened. "Watch this," he whispered, striding toward her with his gang behind him. Emily's stomach dropped the moment she noticed them coming. She had dealt with their mean comments before. They'd call her mute, ghost, or library mouse. Sometimes, they'd kick her chair or knock her books out of her hands. But this time, it was worse. Marcus leaned over her shoulder, and before she could react, he reached for the back of her shirt and snapped her bra strap. The sting wasn't just physical, it was emotional, humiliating, scarring. Emily gasped, clutching her chest in shock, her face turning crimson. The sound of Marcus and his friends laughing rang in her ears. For a moment, she thought the entire cafeteria was laughing with them. Her vision blurred as tears welled up, and she quickly shoved her tray aside and bolted from the table. Some students saw it happen, but they stayed quiet. Others looked away, uncomfortable but unwilling to get involved. That silence hurt almost as much as the bullying itself. Emily locked herself in a bathroom stall, sobbing into her sleeves. She felt dirty, ashamed, and invisible all at once. She told herself she should have shouted, she should have pushed him away, but instead she froze. And now she hated herself for it. What Emily didn't know was that everything, every cruel laugh, every moment of her pain, had been caught on the cafeteria's security cameras. The next morning, Emily was called into the principal's office. She thought she was in trouble, her heart pounding as she opened the door. But inside, her parents were waiting, their faces full of concern. The principal gestured for her to sit, and then pressed play on a monitor. Emily's stomach twisted as the footage rolled. She couldn't even look at the screen. Her mother gasped in horror, and her father's fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. Emily broke down, shaking as tears streamed down her cheeks. But the principal put a gentle hand on her shoulder and said firmly, "Emily, you didn't do anything wrong. What they did was unacceptable, and it will be dealt with." Marcus and his friends were summoned next. At